Welcome to English Speaking Made Easy. This is the program that's going to give you lots of useful tips that you can use to improve your English speaking as well as writing. So let's go on to the first module that we have, and which is Grammar Express. Now, Grammar Express today too, we are continuing our focus on adjectives. So, we gave you certain tips on how to use demonstrative adjectives, how to use quantitative and qualitative adjectives. Now, we are going on to another type of adjective, which is called the possessive adjective. Okay, like the name suggests, a possessive adjective shows possession. ഒരു സംഭവം ആരുടെയാണ്, എന്റെയാണോ നിങ്ങളുടെയാണോ, it shows possession. Okay, they describe to whom something belongs. The first possessive adjective is my, that something belongs to me. This is my pen, this is my, belongs to me. His, it belongs to him. Her, it belongs to her, feminine and the masculine. Okay, their belongs to them. Your belongs to you. So, in all these words, our belongs to us. So, you see, in all these words, the focus is on who owns these things, who possesses these things. Okay? And all these adjectives can only be used before a noun. So, when you take the small tip, it will help you in your sentence construction also. All these possessive adjectives have to be used before a noun. And you cannot just say, that's my. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't reflect on who owns it. So, you have to say, that's my pen. This is our house. These are their cars. So, you need to use, a noun has to come immediately after the possessive adjective, or else it will not convey sense and it's pointless there. If you feel that you don't want to use the noun, you want to leave out the noun or the pronoun. Okay, the noun or the pronoun which is being modified, you want to leave that off in a sentence. Then you can slightly change the possessive adjectives and use these forms instead. You can use words like mine, his, hers, theirs, yours and ours. So, use a slight change in the form and then you can drop the noun. I will tell you what we exactly mean through an example. So, instead of like I said before, you can't say that is my, I said that is incorrect, saying that is my. To make it correct, you have to say that's mine, that's mine. But in that word, that's mine, it does not have a noun following it. Like for example, if someone asks you, whose dog is that? If you don't want to say that is my dog, you can say, oh, he's mine, that's my dog, he's mine. Okay, whose dog is that? Whose daughter is she? She's mine. So, you can drop the noun in this kind of a construction. Now, what we also need to understand is that when we use this adjective, we don't need to use an S when the noun is in plural. In many other languages, we tend to use an S when we make the adjective, this kind of adjective, a possessive adjective, a plural. But in English, we do not need to use an S to the possessive adjective even if the noun is a plural. For example, okay, let's have a look at a few examples. Look at this first sentence. Our cars are expensive. Now, here it is, the noun is plural, but we do not have to add. It is correct to say our cars are expensive. You do not need to use an S with the possessive adjective just because the number of the noun is a plural. It is wrong to say our cars are expensive. It does not change despite the change in the number. Okay, but you need to remember that the verb which is used, it needs to be in agreement with the noun. For example, if the noun is singular, the verb should be singular too. If the noun is plural, then the verb should be plural. Otherwise, it will create, the sentence will not work out right. Like for example, when you are saying my pen, my is the possessive adjective, pen is the noun. You say my pen is black. there you have to use, because it's singular, we use the auxiliary verb is. On the other hand, if you are making it plural, my pens are black. Here, because the noun is a plural. Our child is intelligent, singular, so is. Our children are intelligent, are because it is a plural. Okay. So, if you see, what I actually intend to tell you was the number of the noun of the possessive case, the possessive adjective does not change even if the noun is a singular or a plural. The change has to be marked in the terms of the verb that comes in. There should be an agreement between the subject and the verb. The possessive adjective, despite it being a singular or plural, does not change its form. Now, the other one I want to tell you, and this one I want to spend a little bit of time on, it is this distinction between these words, its. There are actually two words, its. One is its without an apostrophe, the other is it and apostrophe s. Now, these two words are interesting and errors often pop up, and this is said to be one of the most, among the documented errors in writing, this one stands quite on top. The basic problem with this particular usage is that when we are speaking, the pronunciation is the same. It's, it makes no difference. Okay, so you can say, it's my car, it's a beautiful Sunday. In both of these ways, it does not really change. But when you are writing, it's without an apostrophe and it's with an apostrophe have two different uses. One is, it's with an apostrophe, it apostrophe s. Please remember, it's a contraction for the word it is. On the other hand, its without an apostrophe, it is a possessive adjective. Got the difference? One is a contraction for it is, and when there is a contraction, we have a hyphen. The other is a possessive adjective of it. Like, in case you get confused, now how do I make that distinction? Because many of them go wrong in it, and which is why I am emphasizing on it. I will just give you 2 or 3 sentences and see which alternative is the best. The first sentence is, it's a beautiful day. Do you think this particular expression, it's here, in writing, does it require an apostrophe? It's a beautiful day. Okay, it does, because here it's is a contraction of the word it is. You can expand it, it is a beautiful day. You contract it, it becomes it's a beautiful day, and here we need a apostrophe. On the other hand, you have, just imagine you have a marker and the marker's cap is missing, and finally you do find the cap somewhere and you say, hey, this is its cap, or here it's cap. So, here do we need an apostrophe? If you put an apostrophe, it will actually read like this, here is it is cap, and that is wrong. That is because here it is not a contraction for it is a possessive adjective. It is an adjective which shows that the cap belongs to the marker. So, here we do not use an apostrophe, it will be this is its marker without the apostrophe. So, when it is possession, we do not use an apostrophe. When it is a contraction for it is, we do use an apostrophe. Very important to pay attention to this when you are writing. It is an error and it can cause confusion. Okay. Now, with that, we wind up on the possessive adjective bit, and we are going on to our next segment, which is Lexica, your guide to good vocabulary. What we are going to do is, today we are just going to deal with a few expressions that you would come across when you go to a restaurant. Now, if you go to a restaurant and you order a dish which is not part of a set menu, we call it a la carte. Or rather, if there is a buffet has a set menu, you know this is what is going to be there, but you are offering a dish which is, you do not want to go in for the menu, you would rather like to order a separate dish which is not part of the set menu, and you call it a la carte. Okay, it is pronounced a la carte. Do you have a la carte dishes as well as set menus? That's the first word, a la carte, which is ordering something which is not part of a set menu. That's called a la carte. When you go to a restaurant, they often ask you what you would like to have as an appetizer. An appetizer is something that you eat before the main course. And if you look at the Western tradition, they have a very strong demarcation of different courses. You have the appetizer, you have the main course, you have the dessert. So, the appetizer comes in before the main course. It could be anything like a spring roll, could be French fries sometimes, it could be soup. These are all appetizers. So, if someone asks you for an appetizer, you know it does not mean the main meal, it is something you have before the main course. That is an appetizer. The aim of that, of course, is to help to kind of make you feel a better, stronger appetite, something that prepare you for the main course. And once you have, so I have said appetizer, main course, and then we have the dessert. The dessert is what you generally have after the meal. It's pronounced dessert. That could be a sweet dish. It could be a pastry, it could be a pudding, it could be an ice cream, all that is what we call a dessert. Now, once you finished your meal, you ask the waiter to bring you a bill. Okay? So, the bill is the written amount that you pay for a meal. Okay? And you would ask the waiter, can we have the bill please? That is a simple word there. Now, there is another kind of restaurant which is called a cafe. A cafe is also like a coffee shop. This is a very informal restaurant, not a very fancy place, a very casual informal place where people can have coffee, some cold, something hot, something cold, simple meals. Okay? So, that is called a cafe. And you know, is there an all night cafe around here? Which means it is an informal restaurant. On the other hand, a similar sounding word but a different meaning is this word called a cafeteria. A cafeteria and a cafe are two different things. Cafeteria is also called a canteen and that is a noun. It is a place which sells low cost meals, like if you have a school or in a workplace, you have your meal at the cafeteria. It sells meals at a lower cost. Perhaps you know, you could have a self service counter and all that. So, what is the food in the school cafeteria like? So, a cafeteria is different from a cafe. Now, like I said before, we have different course. So, the course, I said main course. If you remember, I mentioned this word main course. A course in a meal is one part of a meal. So, they say like French meals, if you go to France, that a French meal usually includes 3 or 4 courses. You can have 3 or 4 courses in a French meal. So, it is one part of a meal, that is what you call a course. You can say a 4-course meal, there are 4 parts to that meal. Another word that we see is the word cuisine, and look at how I pronounce the word. It is not cuisine, it is cuisine, cuisine. Cuisine refers to a style of cooking that is particular to a country or a region. Like if you say there is more to Indian cuisine than curries. Okay, you got that? So, the word is cuisine, cuisine, a type of cooking style particular to a region. Now, the next word that we can use is the phrase eat out. What do you mean by the word eat out? Eating out is a very common leisure activity for people these days. Eating out means not having food at home, instead going out to a restaurant to have food. We usually eat out 3 or 4 nights a week, which means we usually eat at a restaurant almost 3 or 4 times a week. Okay? So, that is how we use that word eat out. Another word is entree. You might hear people in nice restaurants, saying, what would you like for the entree? The entree means, it's written E-N-T-R-E-E, doesn't mean entry, it's pronounced entree. And this is the main course of a meal. And for the British, it's sometimes used in the sense of a course before the main course also, but generally the main course of a meal, the entree. What are you having for your entree? That is another word there. Now, we all know what fast food is. It is a noun, and we all know what fast foods are. Fast foods are foods that you can have quickly. Things like burgers and French fries. I'll have some fast food. on my way home. It means something which you get quickly. When you have a high class or a high end restaurant, it means a restaurant which is slightly expensive. It's for people who come from that strata of society. You know, we can't afford to go to a high class or a high end restaurant. That's also quite obvious from the word high end or high class restaurant, which means which has high quality and which is frequented by people who are very rich. Okay. Now, when you go to a restaurant, you actually go and you book a table. You book a table or you reserve a table for a meal. So, like for example, you use it like this: it's a popular restaurant, so we'd better make a booking, which means we better book in advance. You know what the next word we have is the word menu, not menu, menu. Menu is the list of food and drinks that is served at a restaurant or a cafe. So, let us check the menu and make our order. Let us check the menu before deciding whether to eat. So, the word is menu. And then do you know something which is very, very popular? It's made from flour and water, and it's got different names like spaghetti, you know, the lasagna. It's called pasta. It's something that it's pronounced pasta. Pasta is very, very popular these days. You get them in different shapes, and depending on the shape, the name also changes. So, it's called pasta. You can order any of our pasta dishes as an appetizer if you want, and we have already discussed the word appetizer. It means something you have before the main course. You can order pasta as an appetizer if you want. Now, I am sure you would know this term of what a pudding is. A pudding is often eaten as a dessert. It's a soft sweet food. You can make puddings out of chocolate, you know, that's also a kind of dessert. Okay, so we've seen a whole lot of words that you could use at a restaurant, and I'm sure you will find them and you'll know at least what those words are and how to pronounce those words right. With that, we're coming on to the third section of our program, and that is Say It Right, your guide to good pronunciation. Here I've got a few words for you which do cause a bit of a problem on account of the pronunciation and similar sounding words. I'll take you through them one by one. The first word is C-O-N-T-E-N-T. I've seen 80% of people make a mistake in the pronunciation of both these words because they have two different meanings, though the spellings are the same. One word, C-O-N-T-E-N-T, it could be used in two ways. That is, it could either mean when you want to say I am very happy with my life, you would say I am very content, which means you are happy and about things going on. I am very content. And then the pronunciation is content. But there is another meaning for this word when it is used to refer to the things. It is not its content. You might have seen in a book, first page we happen to see list of C-O-N-T-E-N-T, and we tend to pronounce it as content. It is not content, it is content. So, one means being happy, being content with your life. The other means what is inclusive. Can I see what are the contents in your bag? In the bag, what is the content of something means that in that sense it is not pronounced content, it is pronounced content. So, we have content and content. So, the spelling is different, but they can be used in two different ways with two completely different strands of meaning. Okay? The other one is S-O-R-E, S-O-U-R. S-O-U-R, we have discussed that word before in one of the previous episodes. Puliyulla sanam, sour. പക്ഷെ നമുക്ക് തൊണ്ടയ്ക്ക് പ്രശ്നം ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ it is called S-O-R-E, sore. If your throat is giving you a problem, you say, I have a sore throat. Sore, sore throat. But if it's S-O-U-R, puli, we say, oh, the soup is so sour. Sour. One is sour and the other is sour. And the next word, D-E-S-E-R-T, D-E-S-S-E-R-T, I will quickly go through that. I have discussed this sometime before too. One is desert, which means maribhumi. The other is dessert, which means a sweet dish you will have after a meal. So, desert, dessert. Spelling very similar, you tend to pronounce both those words as desert. One is desert, the other is dessert. Okay. And then this word which we have been saying so many times, that itself has a different pronunciation in the forms. The first word noku. The first word is pronounce. If you look at how I am saying it, noun, pronounce, pronouncing, pronounced. The sound N-O-U-N is rounded. Pronounce, pronouncing, pronounced. But the last form, it's not pronunciation, it is pronunciation. When you use to, form we tend to say pronunciation, and that is wrong. It's pronounced, pronouncing, pronounced, but pronunciation. Noun alla none, pronunciation. So, you see how those words vary with the form of the verb, with the form of the word. Okay? And the next word is often. Often is used in two ways. Some people say often, some say often. And ideally, I think you could go with the word often, where the T is silent. Okay? So, these were certain confusing words that you tend to mispronounce, and I hope you have learned how to pronounce them correctly now. With this, we reach our final section, the bit where we help you with building conversations. Okay, let's talk. Today, we are taking a conversation between a waiter and a guest at a restaurant. Now, the reason I have taken this is to give you practice with the vocabulary which we discussed previously. Okay, so there are two people, you can have the guest or the waiter. So, the guest goes in, and so he goes into the restaurant, he has made a booking before. So, he says, we had booked a table for 2 for 7 p.m. And the manager or the waiter, whoever is in charge, would tell you, could you tell me your name so I could check the reservation? Could you tell me your name so that I could check the reservations? And the guest says, sure, it's Mohit Kumar. He gives his name, and then he is led to his table, and the waiter tells him, this way sir, we have reserved a table for you by the lawn as you requested. See, we have reserved a table for you by the lawn. A lawn face the lawn as you requested. And then the guest is very happy that it's been that things have been arranged as he requested. So he says, that's great, that's great. And then once he's seated, the waiter he would ask the waiter, could I have the menu? The waiter would respond to that, yes sir, and he would hand over the menu to him, and then perhaps ask him, would you like warm or cold water? And the guest's reply could be either warm water please, and then he makes his order. So, like we said before, for starters or as an appetizer, he says, I'd like to order tomato soup for starters, and for the main course. So, he is having a look at the menu and he is making his order. I would like to have a tomato soup for starters, and for the main course, he could order something, steak or whatever. And then that's when he realizes, when you go to these kind of restaurants, there would also be something that's special for the day. So, he would perhaps ask him, by the way, what is the chef's special today? Innathe special enda, what is the special today, or what is the chef's special today? And the waiter could tell you, we have butter grilled kingfish seasoned with fresh herbs. Even as you say it, it sounds so appetizing. So, the waiter would tell you, like, we have butter grilled kingfish seasoned with fresh herbs, and the guest would feel, sounds interesting. We'd like to have one of that too. Okay, so he orders that, and after the meal, the guest would then perhaps ask, I'd like to see the dessert menu. So, he'd like to see the dessert menu, and that is brought over to him, and he has a glances at the menu, and his response would be, this looks interesting, I'd like to order your, whatever, I mean, you could choose, I would like to order chocolate mousse or orange souffle. He would see something interesting and he would make his order. And then once the guest is done with his meal, he is going to ask the waiter, may I have the bill? Okay, and after paying the bill, he would thank the waiter and tell him, thank you, the food was great, or the food was excellent. And the waiter's response would be, I'm glad you enjoyed your meal. We hope to see you sometime soon. Good night, sir. Okay, and that's how the conversation organically develops. Going to a restaurant, ordering food, asking to see the menu, telling what you would like. So with that, it completes the process of a restaurant setting. Okay, so on this note, I'm signing off until we see you again for another episode. Thank you.